Foundation English 1 Sem 1, common to all UG first years. Now we will see Unit 3.4. In Unit 3.4 it is the three sideways stories. Okay, the three sideways stories. Uh, so here this is the last story of the three sideways stories. Okay, it is talking about Calvin. Actually, Calvin, I made it as Calvin. Okay, so it is only a story, last story about Calvin and his adventures, misadventures. Why it is meant as misadventures, you will come to know. A mysterious note. One day, Miss Jewels asked Calvin to deliver a note to Miss Zavs. She told him to go immediately and said she'd tell Miss Zavs not to meet her for lunch. So, not to meet her for lunch was the note, okay? But this fellow, he just took the note and he did not know how to go to Miss Zavs. And this is the situation which um, the boy faced. The note, Miss Zavs instructed Calvin to take a note to Miss Zavs. The teacher, what happened? Calvin was told Miss Zavs was on the 19th floor. And the third point you can take it as, but the 19th floor didn't exist. So now Calvin tried to leave the note in the Miss Zavs mailbox, but it didn't exist either. So he does not know where this 19th floor is. At the same time, he did not even find where this Miss Zav's mailbox is. So he had a lot of confusions. A floor that wasn't there. Confused, Calvin walked to the administrative office on the first floor. He asked Louis for help, but he said that Calvin shouldn't deliver any notes. So he cannot even deliver the notes now. So now confusion is there. Calvin couldn't understand why there was no note, no teacher, and no floor. And Calvin never received a note from Mrs. Jabs. She just asked him to deliver one that didn't even exist. So actually there was no note that was given to him in hand, and that stating that Mrs. Zavs need not meet her, and no teacher. Miss Zavs, the teacher Calvin was supposed to deliver the note to, didn't exist either, and no ninth floor of Wayside School was never built. It was a complete mystery. So, actually, the story itself begins like Jules, the teacher, asking Calvin to go give this note, but actually, no note exists, and only confusion exists because Calvin finds that there was no note, no teacher, and no floor. 19th floor doesn't exist, and no teacher exists, no note exists. So, what is that which you're going to learn from this lesson? A day of mystery. So, Calvin realized there was nothing he could do. He decided to go back to Mrs. Jewels and tell her he couldn't deliver the note. So, he did not know what to do. And so he decided. So, what is the step here? Miss Jewels asked Calvin to deliver a note, but didn't give him one. Calvin was supposed to find Miss Zavs on the 19th floor, but the floor was not there. And a mailing box, there was no mailbox for Mrs. Zavs, his administrative office on the first floor. Uh, so there also there is no mailbox for Mrs. Zavs. So now what to do? The whole thing was misunderstanding. Mrs. Jewels was asking Miss Zavs to cancel their lunch. This is what actually the note said. Okay, please, I'm not joining your lunch. This was the note which Jewels made for Zaus, but Calvin could not, mind or find, or he could not search or get to know what is all the mystery around this. So now what is happening? Wayside School is full of surprises. So Calvin went back to Mrs. Jewels and explained that he couldn't deliver the note. He was relieved to hear that Mrs. Jewels had just asked Mrs. Zavs not to meet her for Zavs not to meet her for the lunch. So actually the note said, it was not stating that he should come or that Zavs should meet her for the lunch. The note said, don't meet me for the lunch. So Calvin was so excited because somebody calling for the lunch and not mailing it up only is a problem. But this fellow is happy because thank God she has written that Zavs, please don't come for the lunch and I'm not joining for the lunch. So it is a good thing and it's an easy note. Even if it is not delivered, no issues. So that is what Calvin was so happy. No, unrealistic. Wayside School was a strange place full of oddities that made the children question their reality. So the next one is the floor. The builders forgot to build the 19th floor. It was just a missing one. And the teacher, Miss Zavs, was not real. She was a fictional character that Miss Jewels used to avoid lunch with. What about the note? The note that Calvin was supposed to relive didn't exist. The whole thing was a strange and silly misunderstanding. So this is what which surprises the Wayside School. So it is just a thing that made the whole school surprising over here. And what is that? The world of imagination. So the children of Wayside School were used to strange and silly situations, but they didn't know what to make of the story of Calvin's note. So here Mrs. Jewels. Miss Jewels wanted Calvin to leave a note. These are the points you should remember. But they didn't give him one. Her purpose wasn't clear. Then Mrs. Zavs was not real. She was actually a fictional character created by just to avoid lunch with. 19th floor of the Wayside School didn't exist, which made the story all the more bizarre and funny. So this is what is all imaginative thing about the Wayside School. So it's a day to remember. The children of Wayside School love to hear stories about strange and silly situations. They thought Calvin's story was the funniest one yet. Okay, so Wayside School will be remembered for many of the silly things. Okay, strange and silly things. And this is one silly thing, the funniest thing, which the school will always remember. Mr. Strange request made Calvin's day. Wayside School was a strange place full of oddities. So this is what is the main thing about the Wayside School. You have to remember something about the Wayside School means all these silly and strange things. Like we are talking about the third story. Actually, three sideways stories only they said. One and two is totally different. The third one talking about Calvin, and here how Calvin, is the funniest one over here, where we could see no note, no 19th floor, and no teacher. So all this is really funny. Wayside was a strange place full of oddities. And so there's a story to tell. Calvin's story about the missing note, the missing teacher, and the missing floor became a legend. It was a story that the children of Wayside School would remember for years to come. So every time we talk about this, it's really funny, and the children will always enjoy such kind of funniest stories ever. So the note that didn't exist. Mizafs wasn't real. The flow was never built. So this is how you should try to connect things in this beautiful little story, and that is the third story in your lesson, the three sideways stories. Thank you.